Just imagine if you could get super good at drawing torsos real quick. Okay. Are you clickbaiting us? As much as it seems, you can literally go from knowing nothing about torso to having a drawing that looks like this. Yes, within a short amount of period. So this video will be split into 4 sections. First, we'll go over the landmarks of the torso, then level 1, the boxes, level 2, more complex forms, and then lastly level 3, where I'll go over the muscles. I would recommend watching the whole thing, but feel free to skip a level if you already know about it. Okay, before we go through the basics of the torso, we have to identify the landmarks of it. So these are like little clues that helps us indicate where things are. Knowing these will help us draw more believable anatomy. So the landmarks of the torso are the collarbones, the sternum, bottom of the rib cage, and bottom and top of the pelvis. So the sternum is known as like the center of the rib cage or the necktie. And here are 4 crucial points of the pelvis. Okay, so the next thing to tackle is the centerline and the centerline of the back. To identify the centerline, the main landmarks are the sternum, which you can see is this bit, the sternum, the belly button, and the pubic bone. So connect these and you get the centerline. And this is usually drawn as a C curve or an S shape, like this. Now, next, let's just close this one. Oh, hold on. Okay, the centerline of the back. Basically, it is the length of the spine. It starts from the top of the neck to the tailbone. And this usually wouldn't be drawn as a curve or an S shape. Because of the rib cage and the rest of the body parts, it usually would influence the line to look more like this over here. And here is the tailbone. Level 1. I'll be breaking this down into 2 steps, which is the rib cage and the pelvis. So, to simplify the torso, we can see it as 2 rectangles. The first box where the rib cage is usually longer than the second box, which is the pelvis. Alright, now moving on to the rib cage. So the rib cage box, the measurements for this is 2 units wide on the x-axis, 3 units tall on the y-axis, and then 1 unit deep. Now what you want to do is to split that box vertically like this over here. Hold on, wrong pen. Like this. And then after that, split it into thirds like this. That was a bit wonky, but you want to do it straight. Now, with this valuable information, task 1. You want to start drawing the rib cage box in different angles. You can look at references like these ones to help you during your practice. Just search torso boxes on Pinterest. If you struggle with how to draw the boxes like I did, I will usually try to target a corner like this one over here and then see what the angle it makes. Then you can map out the rest like this. I just use this method if I struggle to draw the boxes. So just target one angle like this. Next is the pelvis. So the pelvis is 2 units wide on the x-axis, 1.5 units tall on the y-axis, and then 1 unit deep on the x-axis. Split the box in half vertically like this. And then when you compare the two, there is 1 unit of space in between the two like this. And so for the stomach area, I wouldn't add a structure to it because the stomach doesn't have a solid structure, so we'll leave this part empty. When we compare the ribcage to the pelvis, they have the same width, like this. And they will have the same width on the side, just to keep in mind. When I started doing this, I had such a bad interpretation of where to draw the pelvis box. It always ends up too far or too close to the rib cage, or the rotation of it is wrong. I like to look at each corner of the pelvis box and add a dot. Then I would connect the lines. You can judge the distance of it like this, and then one over here, which is around here-ish. Okay, that's a bit up. And then you can just connect the dots like that. Boom. That's a really bad box, but you get the point. Okay, use the dots only if you can't really judge the distance and the angle between the two of it. Remember to train your eyes rather than relying on the dots themselves. Okay, so task 2. Now you want to draw the pelvis and the ribcage in the box form in different angles. Practice it enough until you're comfortable. So here's a little tip. Then what I like to do is look at realistic torsos with already drawn guidelines like this, as it helps me to understand what areas of the torso are in the boxes. For example, you can see how the obliques or side abs are on this plane of the box. So this step is very crucial because when you move on to looking at references with no guidelines, you can understand the forms of the reference and it becomes much easier for you to break it down. So then after that, start looking at references and break them down using boxes. If you struggle with how to draw boxes from references, you would want to look at how other people break the torso down, like these ones, with a reference on one side and the artist's attempts on the other side. You can try it on your own at first, then compare it to how they do it. Level 2, the rib cage. For the bottom 1/3, we are going to draw half a circle, or if you want to make it more similar to the rib cage, you can draw it like this. You want to draw an Among Us. Here are some examples of it in different angles. Then you can see how I use other lines like the Centerline, as well the other 2 lines similar to a box to give off the 3-dimensional shape. Task 3, copy and practice these. First, start with your basic level 1 structure, the box. Then start adding the Among Us shape and then proceed to practice it in different forms. You can just copy what I did here. Okay, here's another thing to know about. So the middle of the rib cage is where the sternum ends and where the concave area of the torso begins. Double the sternum line and that is the length of the rib cage. Imagine a horizontal line going from there and that's where you get the 2 end bits. I like to use more of a square rib cage to represent a robust figure and a circle rib cage to express rounder people. Also, using this, it is easier to draw dynamic poses. A thing to keep in mind is that when you draw the rib cage as a circle, you have to identify like 3-dimensional shape with just like a center line. So, for the pelvis. The pelvis, there are 2 progressions. First, the basic box, then the underwear. So to draw the underwear, we start off with our basic box, the level 1. Split it horizontally like this, and then divide it vertically like this into 2 lines. You want to leave a gap in between, and you can reference it from the gap between the legs. Draw a line connecting the halfway point to here, and you want to repeat to the other side. When around the shape of the pelvis, I like to imagine it sort of a cylinder shape, sort of a short cylinder like this, or you could just draw what an underwear looks like. Okay, so we have the 2 here, the rib cage and the pelvis, and you start to connect it like this. We'll extend the center line over here, and then I like to add a little curve to it like this to give it more of a realistic feel to it. So for task 3, practice this in different angles. First, start off with level 1 for the constructions, then add in level 2. One thing to avoid, many people draw guidelines like this, and then they draw the rib cages like this as a little bean. But the rib cage doesn't curve or bend. Rather, it's like just a straight line like this. So that's one thing you want to avoid. Level 3. Okay, now that you're on the final step, congratulations, you are almost done. So this is what the muscle groups look like. I like to draw the neck as a cylinder shape, We have the trapezius muscle, which comes from the back, and this can be simplified as 2 triangles when you see it at the front. So the deltoid is 1/3 of the length of the upper arm, and you can draw this as a teardrop shape. The pectorals are 2 hexagons. Don't forget to leave some space in between the bottom of the ribcage like this. For the female, the pecs aren't her breast, so the breast actually goes on top of it like this. I like to draw the biceps. It is very long ovals, and the serratus is those muscles that attach to the ribcage. Then we have the side abs or obliques, which is connected to the top of the pelvis, and as you can see, the abs go all the way down to the pubic bone. Oh, and for the abs, divide the stomach into thirds like this. And you see those little red dots, these are the placement for the V-cuts or the iliac spine. Okay, so moving on to the muscle arrangement. The deltoid overlaps the pecs, and the pecs overlaps the biceps. The biceps overlap the lats, and the lats overlaps the triceps. You can't really see it, but it's like sort of hidden behind it. Then the ribcage and the serratus comes out between the pecs and the lats. Also, just know that due to the concave of the ribs and the pelvis, the stomach would sort of go like out, then in, then out like this. Okay, that is all for it. I'll just go over briefly all the steps. Level 1, you want to draw it in the box form. Level 2 is more complex. It's where you draw the underwear for the pelvis and the among-us shape for the rib cage. Then level 3, I just discussed all the muscles that you need to know, and so that you can apply it to your torsos. Now that I have explained you basically everything you need to know about the torso, all you need to do is just apply these and practice, and then you'll get the results that I did, but probably much faster. Now, after this, you can just watch me draw the torso from references and, just study from there. Okay, that is all for this video. Don't forget to work smart and hard, and I'll see you next week. Bye!